with us this past Saturday during our community event that we had there at UCR. And I appreciate you guys taking the time as well to be with that and take care of that. Today, we're going to be discussing something along those lines, a little different, but that kind of coincides with the aspect of the purpose of TRIO and what we do as a program. And so we have several slides. It's not a long presentation. I think we'll definitely be out of here before 7 o'clock. But bear with us as we go through this presentation because we do want to kind of share some information with you and see how, if you're interested, also participating in this as well. Okay. We have a presentation that we received from one of our partners. Sorry, my son is calling, trying to get my attention right now. I'm just letting him know that this isn't the time right now. But yeah, obviously we're all live and life happens amongst us. But we're sharing a presentation from COE, which stands for Council for Opportunity and Education. They are actually an advocacy body for TRIO, and I'll explain a little bit more about what that means. Um, and they are assisting us in the process of connecting with Congress and communicating with our representatives in DC. And I'll share a little bit more as to why that matters. Okay, so Victoria, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Okay, so on Saturday, I kind of gave a very brief kind of introduction to TRIO and the different programs that we have. Um, but for those of you who already know or are not aware, TRIO are federally funded programs. And what does that mean? So federally funded program means that all of the funding that we receive, the grants that we have four different grants at UCR under the pre-college side, which is three Upward Bounds and one Talent Search grant. And then we have two on the college level side, which is SSS, Student Support Services, as well as our McNair program. And being federally funded means that the Department of Ed, which is under, the United States government, we write for a grant, and when we get funded, it's literally taxpayer money that allows us to do the work that we do, and it allows us to work with the students that we have. Okay. And it's not just the United States, it's also its territories, which is really interesting as well. So, like Puerto Rico being a US territory, Guam, Micronesia, there's several islands in the Pacific that actually cross the daylight savings time. So some of our programs are way ahead in terms of time, but because they're US territories, they also have the opportunity to write for a TRIO grant and also receive the same services for provide the same services that you all are receiving where they're located as well. And it says here in the second bullet, it says it's designated to provide services to support low-income first-generation students. And that's the main idea, right? To provide support to individuals who have, similar to myself, because I was also an Upward Bound participant, Daisha, Upward Bound participant. I think Victoria, you did ETS, am I right on that? Okay, so again, another TRIO program. And so to provide support to individuals who come from low-income first-generation backgrounds. And again, the majority of us qualify for both, and if it's not, we are required to provide services to two-thirds of our students have to be both low income and first generation. So if you fall into that category, no worries. That is the purpose of what TRIO programs do. The other one third would be either or. You could be either low income or first generation. On the Upward Bound side, we also can provide services to students who are considered at risk, meaning they have a need, whether it's their academic support, whether they need extra math support, whether they didn't do well with standardized tests. So there's different eligibility components when it comes to TRIO programs. But at the end of the day, the goal is to support students and their purpose and their goal of attaining a post-secondary education. And that's what we do, right? Like that's what our programs does. Obviously, you guys are all part of our program. But in order for this to happen, we need to receive the support from Department of Education to continue to receive the grants that we've been able to write for and receive the funding for us to be able to do what we do with you all, with the next generation of students that are going to be coming in. And so, allowing us to apply for these grants, allowing us to receive the funds, um, that's critical. That's very, very important. And we want to make sure people understand that part. Now, we typically don't do these sessions. I don't think we've ever had a presentation like this. But, things are different these days and, times are changing and, there's a need to showcase why it's important to maintain these programs, to showcase the impact that these programs have. So if you don't mind, Victoria, go ahead and go on to the next slide. And, at the end of the day, what we're doing tonight, we're doing it on our own time. Like we're doing this because this is important to advocate on behalf of TRIO to make sure that you all understand the importance of maintaining these programs. In a couple of weeks, actually, in a couple of weeks, Victoria and I are going to actually go to Washington, D.C., and we're going to be attending a conference there. But at the same time, we're actually going to take the time to meet with our local representatives. So all of you all obviously live in a specific city, and you are all being represented by a specific person. And because you are part of UCR's program, we stretch several boundary lines, to be quite honest with you. With Banning being where it's at, the local representative there is Dr. Raul Ruiz, which actually covers most of the Coachella Valley. For those of you who live in Paris, Riverside, you're covered by Mark Takano. For those of you who are on the Bloomington Rialto side, it could be either Norma Torres or Pete Aguilar, And then for our talent search side, because it's all San Bernardino, then they are all covered by Pete Aguilar. And, it's important to us to be able to have the opportunity to meet with them and discuss with them the impact that we're having in our communities, the opportunities that we have to support the families that we work with. And us being prior participants of Upward Bound or a TRIO program, we know exactly what it can and continue to do for the families that we service. Okay? And so tonight we're going to be focusing on how you yourself, if you're interested, this is all on your own. This is not something that we're forcing on anyone. As you can tell, not everybody is here. We made a invitation to everyone who would be interested in learning more about this. If you are interested in advocating on behalf of yourself, advocating on behalf of your community, on behalf of your family, on behalf of this program, you as a constituent of a local of a what do we call them? It's not territories. I can't remember the. Do you understand what I'm saying, Victoria? I forgot the word, but we're all part of a specific area that's represented by a congressman. And so you have the opportunity to actually advocate on behalf of yourself to those individuals specifically. And because you are a constituent within their area, within their boundary lines, then they have to listen to you. They have to listen to you because they represent you. They don't just speak on behalf of themselves, they speak on behalf of you, of your parents, of those that live within the community. And this is a great opportunity as an individual for you to use your own personal voice and advocate on behalf of yourself, your family, your community, our program, whatever it is, your high school, whatever you feel is important to you. Okay. And so our new administration that we have, right? We have a new president, and there are some priorities that he has already laid out. And some of those priorities are actually against what we do, to be quite honest with you. Several weeks back, there was a specific, request that he put out where he decided that he was going to freeze funding for certain things. And actually, we don't usually tell this to people, but that actually was going to affect us. That was actually going to affect TRIO specifically because although the services that we provide and the programs that we have are secured and set in stone by law, the method in which we receive our funding through the government, that was exactly what's being affected. There was a specific freeze in the way the money was going to be funneled out to the programs. And it would have been directly impacting all TRIO programs, every single one in the nation. And that was difficult. That was a really interesting situation. But, at the end of the day, the following day, there was a judge that stepped up and said, no, you cannot do that. All of these funds have already been allocated. These funds have already been agreed upon, and they have to be distributed to the programs that have already been granted these funds. And so with that, everything continued moving forward, you know. And so there are some situations that have come up, and I'm not here to like tell you what to believe in and what to think, and that's not my job. My job tonight is to let you know what's actually happening, and so that you can make your own personal decision as to how you want to react to it, whether you want to or not. And again, the fact that Victoria and I are going to Washington, D.C. and meeting with our representatives is because there's obviously we're concerned. We do have concerns as to what's going on in our current environment, and we want to make sure they understand that these situations do affect us directly, and the work that we want to continue to do, you know, if things don't change, if things continue to go in the way that they're going, might be challenged. It might be putting a stop in what we do, and that's a big problem, you know. And so, what we're going to be discussing, if you don't mind, Victoria, go ahead and go on to the next slide. We're going to be sharing some slides as to how you yourself, you yourself can actually tell your story directly to your representatives, okay? Because they have to listen to you because you live in their area, the area that they represent. They have to listen to you. And what we would like to do, my goal, if you're interested, again, I'm not forcing anyone's hand tonight. Our goal is to see if you'd be interested in writing something on behalf of yourself, maybe even your parents, if you would like to write something that we ourselves can actually hand deliver to your representative when we meet with them in Washington, D.C. Because again, you can easily call them on the phone, you can email them, or you could even visit them directly because they all actually have a local office, and we can share that information at the end as well. They all have a local office of the area that they cover. So they all have to have a local office here in whatever area they cover, as well as an office in Washington, D.C. So we're going to be going to Washington, D.C., and we're going to meet with the representatives. And in that conversation, we would love to be able to drop off a letter from yourself, from your family, whoever it is, if you're interested, and just give it to them and say, these are letters specifically written by your constituents regarding our program, the impact that it's having, and why it's important to continue to provide these services moving forward. Um, and at the end of the day, you could do that yourself. You can pick up the phone, your cell phone, give them a call, say, you know what, my name is so and so. I live in Banning. You know, Congressman Ruiz is our representative, and I'd like to share a little bit about my story, who we are, and the importance of TRIO programs. And they have to write that down. They have to write that down because one day what's going to happen is, in order for us to continue to exist, obviously we need to have that money available to us. In order for us to be able to continue to provide the services, we have to be able to receive a grant from the government. And when it comes down to assigning money that gets allocated throughout the government, we want to make sure that those funds continue to be there so that we can continue to the work that we do. And the only way that's going to happen is making sure that we're in the minds of those making the decisions because they need to know and they need to hear directly from you all and say, hey, I've been hearing about TRIO. I've been hearing about the impact of Up or Down and what it's doing in our families. You know what? We need to continue to support these things because obviously they're doing something and we need to make sure that they continue to you know, uh, get the services that they deserve or that they need in order to improve. Because at the end of the day, we're not just changing your life, we're changing your kids' life and their life, because we're creating generational changes in what we're doing. Our goal is not to keep the status quo of where we're at. My parents, when they came to the United States, they did the hard labor. They did the hard work. My dad's still beating his back, trying to support himself, and he works in construction. He has a hard labor, right? But that was where it ended, right? He's like, as long as you're not doing what I'm doing, we're good, because he understood that I'll break my back so that you can do well academically and go to school, so that you don't have to be in the same situation. The same thing applies for my kids. Although my wife and I are both in education and we have good jobs, the expectation is that my kids are also going to go to college and do well academically, or at the end of the day, we want to make generational changes so that we don't have to continue to move backwards, but we move forward. Okay. So with that, I'm going to be turning this over to Victoria. Victoria actually sat in this specific workshop that was provided by COE. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just quickly mention about COE. So again, COE is our advocacy body in Washington. They actually have an office there in Washington, D.C. And when it comes to issues regarding TRIO and any of our programs, they are the ones that specifically go and meet with our representatives, with the people who are making the decisions, specifically the Department of Education. They have connections, they have contacts, they know exactly who to work with, and they know what our needs are. They understand what the concerns are because we meet with them, and they're the ones that are actually putting together this specific conference that we're going to be attending, and they're organizing all of the sessions, right? Like although I'm going to be making the appointments with our representatives, they're the ones giving us the material. They're the ones giving us the information that needs to be shared out because this is what they do, you know. So there are people in this, in our environment who focus on advocating on a specific topic because you're so passionate about it. Like if you're specifically passionate about medical support or you know um, immigration law, if you're in like it, whatever it is, there are going to be people who go and advocate on our behalf to connect with these individuals that are making the decisions. But you yourself can do this as well, right? Like that's why we're having this conversation tonight. But COE is our advocacy body that works with us to connect with Congress, with the ones making the decisions. And so this is their presentation that they provided. They actually had this session several weeks back. Victoria sat in the session, and this is the material that they're sharing. We decided to tailor it a little differently with just to you guys specifically. This is why we're having this session tonight. And again, you're more than welcome to ask questions. I saw that a question came up from Esmeralda. Please bear with us. Put your questions on the chat room. Um, and we have other staff members, people that are overseeing the chat, and we'll gladly respond to those questions as well as we go through the presentation. But again, please be involved. At the end of the day, this is for you all. This is for to continue what we do. But at the end of the day, this is all option. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Victoria.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it over from here. We're actually gonna be working a little bit more on actually like writing down and starting our like letters to our congressmen and representatives. But I think it's very important, like Alvaro said, that you tell the story from your perspective. Always, always want to tell it from your perspective. Um, and if you really speak from your personal words, it impacts our representatives a lot more. They get to know you as an individual and really see the impact the program has had. Um, and it's best way to kind of just educate the importance to you, right? As Alvaro mentioned, that's the number one thing. You want to speak from your own words. You don't want to speak from your um anybody else's words. It's from your you've most of you have been in part of this program for 2, 3 year for years now. Some of you are going on your fourth year right with us here in UB. Talk about that. Talk about all the things it's helped you, all the resources that UB has provided you all. Um, so we're gonna go a little bit just into kind of like identifying your purpose. Um, and I do have some samples, so you don't have to start all of this from scratch if you're kind of like, I don't know where to go. Don't worry about it. We do have some pre-made templates. We have a worksheet that you can look at, that you can work on, to really kind of expand your horizon and give you a starting point. We do recommend, obviously, it is recommended by the COE as well, that you tailor them to your story, as mentioned. Um, so when you're writing these letters, they're going to be letters. Um, it's very important to kind of identify your purpose. Why are you writing this? Um, Demonstrate and explain what the value and effectiveness TRIO has done to you, right? Another thing when you're writing your letter, understand your audience, right? We all have different representatives. We do have the same senators, right? The two senators of California. And then we do have different representatives depending on what city you're in, right? So when you're writing these letters, think about who's going to, right? And I'll give you guys a website and link to kind of look into who your local representative is and what they represent. You can definitely look at their websites, look into kind of What are the things that they're advocating for? What are the things they're pushing for? What are the things they believe in? What are their values? Um, and consider that, right? And a lot of them do have like web pages where all of this information, they have Instagram pages that you can look at as well. But really kind of see who they are as a person when where you can align with them. So as I mentioned, there is a worksheet, and it's really simple. And I kind of walk you through it really quick. Deja will go ahead and put the link in for you. But the worksheet is really a brief introduction. Who are you? What's your name? You know, what school do you go to? What grade are you? And then what trio program you're part of, right? Whether that be UBRCJ, UB Oasis, UB Classic, right? And then really kind of get into the sharing your personal experience, right? It could be really brief. It could just be, as the example shows, you know, as a participant in the UB program, I received guidance and support needed to prepare for college and succeed in academics. You can definitely go more into detail. Talk about all the things that you've participated, right? If you've gone to workshops, Saturday sessions, if you've gone to college tours, if you did the Northern California tour, right? Talk about that. Don't be afraid to hold back. Um, and then talk about the impact, right? How has Trio really impacted you, right? Were you kind of struggling in your classes before, and now, since being in Trio, you've gone on track, you've been doing tutoring, and you feel you're on the A through G coursework, and you feel like you're ready for college. For my seniors who are in here, right? We've definitely helped guide you through FAFSA, helped you fill out your college applications. Talk about that. Talk about all the significance and difference it's had in your life. You know, where would you be if you weren't in Trio? Would you have received the same services, the same support? Um, Talk about them. And then very important, we're gonna go into the call to action. This is really kind of where you're like, look, this is all it's done for me, and this is why you should continue serving these programs. Um, really urge them to continue to like federally fund us, and why you want to succeed. So really hear them out. Don't be afraid to be like, hey, like we need to continue this. It's helped me so much, and I know it can help so many other students. Say it. You can say it. Um, and last but not least, you know, as Alvaro said, if you're interested in going into the local offices, right, you can practice a little bit of an elevator pitch, right? Write down maybe a two, three few bullet points of what you would want to say if you were ever to go into person. Um, and then this letter, essentially, we would like, as Alvaro said, to deliver this directly to the representatives. We are making the effort to try and go out there and represent all of you, right? Um, I know Alvaro is going to definitely represent more of the ETS side, but I am definitely going to represent more of the upward bound side. So I will be representing all 9 schools. So I highly, highly encourage you to please, like, if you have one, I would love to receive one from at least each program so that we can demonstrate them to the different representatives. Um, and this is just a little worksheet. And there is also an actual template that Deja will also go ahead and put the link in. Um, and this is the official letter that we will be taking. The first one is just a worksheet to just kind of jot down your thoughts. And if you're ready, you can just go ahead and take this template. If you're kind of like, I'm not sure where to start, go ahead and take from here. It's really simple. It has your name, your address. I do encourage you to go ahead and put your full address because that is going to help us identify exactly who to deliver these letters to. And then I will walk you through kind of where to find who your senator is or your House of Representative, right? Um, I don't want you to be too concerned about the office address as of right now. I just want you to focus more on the content. Um, and as we continue, Um, it's already kind of pre-made template. All you would need to fill in are where the little brackets are. You're more than welcome to kind of keep them as is or input your own story, right? These are just some general sentences. You can totally like disregard these sentences, write your own. We encourage you to go ahead and write your own. Um, but this is kind of more just to guide you. But like I was mentioning earlier, like we want you to be as genuine as possible. Be you. I know sometimes it's kind of scary, writing these letters to such formal representatives, such high authority, but just be you, be genuine. Don't feel like you have to use the most eloquent vocabulary. That's not necessary here. Just be you. They appreciate that a lot more. But always remember when you're writing your essay, like be positive and respectful. Focus more on trying to push for positive outcomes and for solutions versus focusing more on the negative stuff that's happening, that's going on, right? Um, as Alvaro kind of briefly mentioned, we are written into law because we are a bipartisan issue, meaning we're supported by both the Republican and the Democratic, right? So when you're looking at the different politicians, you might come across that maybe your representative is Republican, but you don't necessarily align with their views. Just remember to be respectful and remember TRIO in general is a bipartisan issue. So that means maybe your representative is a Republican, maybe you're Democratic, but they still support TRIO and they still support the work that we're doing. And if you're interested, we do encourage you to practice your story. You never know, maybe you'll run into a representative coming to your local high school, and maybe you want to practice talking to them. I'm here to support you. Alvaro is also here to support you. We're all here to support you. So if you have questions on how to like practice your elevator pitch, feel free to let us know. We can definitely focus a little bit more on that. But yeah, just a little bit more about kind of finding your local representatives. So as you all know, we have the two senators, Alex Padilla and Adam Shai. And then I will actually kind of walk you through. uh, um, This is kind of like their webpage, as I was mentioning earlier, right? This is the senator of California. You can contact them directly if you feel the need and you want to go ahead and contact them. If you want to work on this letter and just send it to them, go ahead. You can definitely just email them directly. It has all their email information. There has their office location as well. Like I mentioned earlier, me and Alvaro can help you like identify that if you're not too sure where it is. But also kind of look into about what they're into, right? They always have a little bit about them kind of page, see who they are as a person, see who you're connecting with, and see a little bit about more of their priorities, kind of what they support, what are their objectives, right? So for example, Adam believes in small businesses, right? Do you support that? How can you help them, right? Um, Look into who's representing you. It's very important. Um, and then Deja will go ahead and also put this link. This link is a little bit like, as Alvaro said, you all come from different districts, right? So the best way is for you to go ahead and put your zip code. This is my zip code. I'll go ahead and click find my representatives, and these are my two representatives, right? If you want to be more specific, you can go ahead and put your street address. I am not going to put my street address. I don't want you all to know where I live. But I encourage you to, go ahead and put your street address and it will give you more of an exact representative. So for example, I am represented by Norma Torres and P. Aguilar. A lot of my folks from the RCG program are gonna get similar responses. Um, so definitely encourage you to look at them. You can look at their webpage and see what their information is about, right? What they support. I will say, personally, I've reached out to Norma Torres and she's very responsive. Aguilar is too. They just take a little bit of time to get back to you, but they do look at your emails, they do look at all this information. So please take the time if you want to go ahead and look at it. But yeah, I think the most important thing right now is I want you all, if you can, let's go ahead and get writing on these, get started on these. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording now, and then we'll just focus on one-on-one individual time.